Hello and welcome. This is Jeffrey Byard, your host, and this is Healing Shame. Let's just jump right in. We're going to read from Strengthening My Recovery, and it is May 29th. I'm going to go ahead and pop the reading up on your screen, so let's just get right to it. May 29th, Awakening Spirit. In ACA, we carry the awakening of the spirit down to the deepest level where the inner child is paralyzed by fear. From the Big Red Book, page 360. When we attended our first ACA meeting, the 12-step language may have intimidated us. What the heck were these people talking about? Was this part of some cult? Was it safe to keep coming here? Could these people really be happy, even with all their problems? As we kept coming back, we learned to explore recovery slowly and start to become an inner loving parent to those wounded parts of ourselves that hurt for longer than long. We found the pain and the shame that was deep within us, but we also found that beneath those things lay a wellspring of life, the energy to carry us through anything and everything. We discovered a path inside ourselves, a path that could lead us home should we have the courage to follow it. We no longer had to do it alone. And here's our mantra. On this day, I have faith that by consoling my inner child, I also get closer to my higher power. This is from Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families World Service Organization, and this is from Strengthening My Recovery, the text. So the underlying premise in ACA is to become your own loving parent. That's the solution. We had biological instruments growing up, I know I sure did, that were not there. They were either emotionally unavailable, invalidating, abusive in some way, shape, or form, neglectful. It was a complete nightmare. And I never had the owner's manual for life because I had sick people, dysfunctional people, unable to pass those things on to me in a healthy way. They never had it themselves. So in ACA, I'm to become my own loving parent. And how in the heck do you do that? Well, the Big Red Book, which I have in front of me right here, it's got all kinds of good information on how to do that. There's a whole chapter titled The Solution Becoming Your Own Loving Parent. So as I work through this process of becoming my own loving parent, and there's a letter I can write to try to elicit this loving parent, try to hear the voice of the loving parent inside. There are many different ways to do that. One of them for me is to, when the inner critic, because the inner critic is going to be louder than the loving parent at first, a lot of times. And so I talk to this inner critic and I tell the inner critic, I thank the inner critic, I appreciate the support and the protection that he has been offering or they've been offering for decades. And I ask them to step aside. They've been heard and to step aside so I can hear the other voices in there. The loving parent is usually too quiet. So I have to ask the critic to kindly step away so I can hear the loving parent come to the surface. That takes practice and it takes time. But as I learn to do this, a new life energy flows into me. And that ripples all the way down to the level of that inner child who's frozen, paralyzed by fear because the false self has been up in effect. And the inner child, the one that connects with people, the one that just naturally loves and has a compassion and trust for others and enjoys the butterflies and the new cultures and languages and all the different special things going on, the way an airplane takes off and a flower. The inner child appreciates and enjoys these things. But that true being, that original self goes into hiding. But as I work the steps and I reach out to others and I learn about myself by reading the big book, that new life energy flows down into me and begins to unlock this inner child that can come out. And it wasn't just me and my family that had an inner child that had to run to hiding. The way it worked in my family is, shit ran downhill. So my father, a sick man, sickness passed to him by his family, his parents. He would usually take it out on my older brother, his hate, his rage, his violence and sickness. And then I would do something to my younger brother because I was suffering from all the insanity in the house and the violence and shaming going on in the house. And my older brother would usually take that as an opportunity to act out his rage, trying to stand up for my younger brother. He would take that out on me. So it just ran from the biological father to the older brother down to me to my younger brother, and I don't know where my younger brother took it out. Maybe he just internalized it. I don't know. We all internalized, I'm sure. I know I internalized a lot. But I was pretty impressionable in those days. I'm still impressionable. So if I was in an environment that was not nurturing, that was violent, that was full of hate and self-doubt and fear, any kind of habit or negative hobby or negative habit, I was going to suck that up like a sponge. And a lot of times my older brother had things that were hobbies of his that were passed on to me. I was very impressionable and I needed an escape. So that was a great opportunity for me to escape into heavy metal music, role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, um, anything like that. And there were great times too. I remember the great times being able to go into his room and get away from the violence going on in the house. It was very much, his room was a sanctuary. His room was the sanctuary in the house for me, definitely for me, and I'm sure for my younger brother as well, because we were able to go in there and get away from the violence, and I felt safe there. But a lot of that stuff that was going on with him was passed on to me too. It's just how it was. There's no judgment here. These are just facts. So, in the reading here, there's a lot of parts of me that are wounded. There's that inner critic, and a lot of times it becomes blended with that inner rebel, the inner teenager, and that part is super hurt. There's other parts of the inner child, sabotaging inner children in there. They need to be found. They need to be held and loved by the new loving parent, which is that ability I have inside of me that has to be elicited, that has to be brought out. But in the midst of all discovering my grief and my unexpressed grief and all the pain inside there, that's the point of working this program. There's a lot of unexpressed grief, and that's causing things to come out sideways. There's a feeling of that I'm not good enough. And that's where a lot of my addictions were born, was this underlying feeling of being faulty. That's that toxic shame. That's my core of toxic shame. And all the addictions I have, the compulsion, the obsessions, all those are born there. So the escapism, it was all because, hey, I'm not good enough. You're showing me these biological instruments, these dysfunctional parents are showing me I'm not good enough. I've got to run to something so I don't have to feel that pain. And it was music, video games, whatever it might have been. So to address that core of toxic shame, the inner parent needs to come, the loving parent needs to come in and console the inner child, tell the inner child you're safe. You're basically talking to yourself. That's essentially what this is. Inside your head or on paper in a journal, maybe it's non-dominant handwriting exercises. The loving parent can ask a question, and then the non-dominant hand can write the answer, and that's supposed to be the inner child speaking. It's a very interesting psychological exercise. But this stuff really, really does work. I don't have to do it alone either. I reach out to ACA members, fellow travelers, weekly, sometimes daily, and I reach out and I run things by them. I share my experience, strength, and hope. I share what's going on with me, anything that's coming up. And as I work through this process, some of my defects are going to be slowly removed. Slowly, operative word there. Some of my laundry list traits are going to begin to be integrated. My people pleasing, for example, my fear of authority figures, my codependence, the fear of abandonment. These things begin to be assuaged and integrated into my existence, into the fabric of my being. And there are ways to do that. And the Big Red Book here has many, many ways to work on these types of techniques. But at the very end, it's really great because, I do have the faith now. I have the faith that consoling the inner child with the loving parent, I get closer to that higher power. And if I get close to the higher power, nothing can stop me. Nothing can stop the progress of recovery. The higher power. My inner child is the conduit, is the connection, the portal, the gateway to that higher power. So it's really an amazing journey, not a destination. Remember, this is a recovery journey. And I'm so grateful to be here with you. And I wish you a beautiful day, evening, whatever time it is for you, afternoon. This is Jeffrey Byard, your host, Healing from Shame. Until next time, goodbye.